and welcome to the tranexamic acid talk for 2025. For some of you, this is just going to be a brush up, but for some of you, it's the first time you're looking at all this. So welcome, and here we go. I'm Tiff Bombard. I have no conflicts to disclose. I will tell you a little bit about myself. I'm still currently a paramedic. I worked in EMS for 20 years before I went to medical school. I work at CVPH in Alice Hyde and Adirondack Medical Center, and I used to work at Messina a little bit too. You may have seen me there. I'm an EMS medical director. I'm the medical advisor at Whiteface, and I am the Mountain Lakes REMAC co-chairhuman with the illustrious Tom Williams. The objectives for this talk. While you're sitting here listening, try not to waste your own time, right? Think about, how could I teach this material to somebody else? How could I teach it to my spouse or my partner tomorrow or my student? And not only tomorrow should you be able to teach this to someone, but you should be able to teach it to someone next week and next year and next decade if we're still using TXA and decade, right? None of this is heavy lifting, but while you're sitting here, think about metabolizing it to that level where you could actually teach this to somebody else. And then you're mastering, right? Then it's yours for real. And this isn't just catch and release education. If you're just going to think about this now and forget about it tomorrow, then you're wasting your time listening to me. You have better things to do. So what things are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the nature of blood clots, how tranexamic acid works, the evidence-based medicine involved, at least a little bit, and when not to give it. Tranexamic acid. Tranexamic acid, better known as TXA. That's what we're talking about. So how does this whole process work? Well, when you damage a blood vessel, or when you damage any sort of tissue, skin, muscle, fat, bone, anything, either by trauma or in medical world by surgery, right? When somebody gets their knee replaced or whatnot, they get blood clots, right? Why do you have blood clots? So that you don't bleed to death. So it's a natural phenomenon to have blood clots. We all know that. The thing about blood clots, though, is that they can't stay forever, or you'd just be one big walking blood clot. That would make no sense at all. Wounds need room to heal. You've got to break them down. So it turns out that as soon as you start clotting, you start breaking clot down right then. So that's called clot degradation. Now there's this thing called plasmid, and I want you to remember plasmid forever, really, right? Till you die, I want you to remember this word. Plasmid. Plasmid is the stuff in your body that breaks down blood clots so that you're not one big walking blood clot your whole life, right? So remember plasmid, like plastic explosive. That's a way to remember it. And what does it do? It breaks up clots like plastic explosive. It explodes them. All right, maybe not literally, but just think of it that way. It's easy to remember. Plasmid. Why do you care? Well, let's think about blood clots themselves. If you've ever fiberglassed something, you're kind of acquainted with this whole situation here. You have platelets. Those are those little round globby things. There's fibrin mesh, right? Self-explanatory. There's red blood cells stuck in there, right? So now you make this big glob, which stops bleeding. Now here's this fantastic video. I could watch this thing 5 times in a row. There's so much to see here, but this explains a lot of how this works. So check it out. It's a cartoon. You're going to love it. Tell me that's not amazing. All right, so TXA blocks plasmin. That's all it does. It blocks plasmin. So the clot doesn't break down right away and the clot lasts longer. Ideally, that means we have less bleeding. That's the whole premise. You got it now. So TXA deactivates that plastic explosive, that plasmin, so it won't break down the clot. Okay, let's look briefly at some clinical trials. The first one that really got traction was something called CRASH-2. It was in 2013. It was conducted in 274 hospitals in 40 countries. It was enormous, well-powered study. Power means they've got lots of patients in it. It was randomized, placebo-controlled, and double-blind. So it had the trifecta of things that make good studies, plus it was well-powered. So this thing is really holds some weight here, right? It was based on clinical gestalt. That's the one kind of weakness, is they didn't have super strong, like, yes-no criteria for what was going on. However, it showed promise. The number needed to treat to have one life-saving outcome was 67. So not amazing, right? Not every single patient, but not bad. 67 doses to get a one life saved, not bad at all. The other really important thing that came out of this trial is they decided that no difference in venous thromboembolism rates were happening with or without TXA. So we weren't causing people to have DVTs and PEs by giving this, right? That's hugely important because intuitively you would think if you stop blood clotting, you're going to get a PE, but that's not what's happening with TXA. So we got lucky on this. The sub-analysis of this data showed us that TXA is most effective within 1 hour of injury, right? So it gets less effective as time goes on. After 3 hours, it was useless. And most applicably, it should be used in some systems where there's definitive treatment at a trauma center more than an hour away, right? So you're 5 minutes down the road from the trauma center. It doesn't really matter if you gave the TXA or not, probably. But if you are 50 minutes away from the trauma center, then it probably does. Okay. The next one that we need to know about was the Matters trial. That was in 2012. And that was retrospective. So not quite as good as a prospective study, and it was observational as opposed to placebo controlled, so also not as great. However, again, held promise. It was a military study, which always gets our attention. It happened in Afghanistan, and there were 896 patients in it, which is, again, not a huge number, but the results were, again, very promising. Number needed to treat were 7 in this one, so that's got people excited as well. There was also a Matters 2 trial. This was retrospective observational as well. It compared the mortality of 4 groups: TXA only, cryoprecipitate only, which is it's plasma with clotting factors. Essentially, it's sort of this distilled product. TXA and cryoprecipitate, or neither. Again, this was a military trial, 1,332 patients, so not badly powered. And they used 1 unit of blood plus this other stuff. They decided that cryoprecipitate plus TXA was the best, but TXA alone was definitely associated with decrease of mortality in this study. Then there was CRASH 3. This is also something you really need to be aware of, because this was important because they looked at the effectiveness of TXA use in head injury, so intracranial hemorrhage, and they found it to be useless. Really well-powered study, well done, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled, 12,000 patients, right? So really good study, and they definitely landed the plane on this. You know, one study never lands the plane on anything. However, this was a pretty significant study that said, don't give this in head injury. All right. So what's the story? It's 2 grams of TXA in 100 mils over 10 minutes. Easy peasy to give. It's for trauma-associated shock. You can also give it for postpartum hemorrhage, but you need a medical control order. You can also consider norepinephrine. Concurrently, also needs a medical control order. It's $11 a dose, so we love that. It's good for solid organ trauma. If you've got a tourniquet on it and you've got the bleeding to stop already, then you've got the bleeding to stop already, right? So you probably don't need TXA for that. You also should not give it for intracranial hemorrhage. We just talked about that. That's CRASH 3. We've also studied it for GI hemorrhage. It does not work for that, right? So mom falls down, cracks her head only. That's her only injury. She has an intracranial bleed. She's altered. She's vomiting. Things are bad. Don't give TXA. It's not going to help her. Dad is vomiting up blood, or he's pooping out blood, and you can smell it outside the door. It's terrible. It's all this mixed melanotic, hematochesic yuckiness. Don't give it. It's not going to help him either. Okay, here's the protocol. We're going to talk about a couple of things here. TXA is paramedic level only. You give it if you have signs of shock and a systolic blood pressure lower than 100 or a MAP lower than 65. We are not giving blood yet, you know that, but someday we will. And you are giving 2 grams of TXA. Yes, you are. Thank you. Medical controls considerations. Additional normal saline. Now, underneath the paramedic stop line, there's this addressing of normal saline, and you can give up to 2 liters. Talk to your medical director about this. Lots of medical directors are going to say, please don't give 2 whole liters of saline to your trauma patients. All you're doing is chasing the little clotting factors away from each other, and all they want to do is hold hands and clot, right? So talk to your medical director about how much saline is enough. Additional normal saline is additional normal saline over and above 2 liters, which is a heck of a lot of saline. So you're probably not going to get too many people that are going to order this for you, but it's situational, right? As everything. Blood administration, not doing that yet. TXA administration, please do that. Now, what other patients might your online medical control doc give you TXA for? Well, sometimes in the hospital, we give it or nebulize it for epistaxis or for post-tonsillectomy bleeding, those kinds of things, right? So if that's the situation you're in, also sometimes for hemoptysis, right? The patient's coughing up blood out of their lungs. Some people will nebulize TXA for that. Those are things that you can talk to your medical control doc about. But again, this is not fly be free little paramedic land, right? This is not in the protocol. You can't use those things without an order. Norepinephrine, again, is addressed. Don't delay transport to give TXA or blood or anything else. Honestly, just stop the bleeding and find a surgeon. Get your patient there. That's what saves them. Okay, here's a review. We're done already. Can you believe it? All right. What is the substance in your body that breaks down clots? That's plasmin. That's the plastic explosive. Don't forget about plasmin because that's key. What does TXA stand for? It stands for tranexamic acid. How does it work? It stops plasmin, so you keep your clots. What's the dose? It's 2 grams. 2 grams. Used to be 1 gram. It's not anymore. It's 2 grams. Go big or go home. What trauma patient should not get TXA? It's your head trauma patient, right? Isolated head trauma, TXA not helping. Should GI hemorrhage get TXA? No. No, that sneaky, stinky, bloody poo. No, TXA doesn't help. Don't give it for that. What's the time limit? 3 hours, really loosely, right? Past that, it's useless. Okay. Here's a reminder. If you have protocol suggestions, that's actually how we change the protocols. It's based on what you submit. Submit it to this website, right? So super easy, very fast, easy to use tool. We read these on the protocol committee, and it's how we draft new protocol. Also, if we're doing something wrong, you can write it in there and we'll fix it. All right. Thank you, Dr. Daly from the Remo region for helping to edit these slides. That's Dr. Daly. That's me. Thank you so much for listening. Be safe. Please feel free to contact me anytime if there's something I can do to help. Bye. Have a great day.